We are going to be looking at Job chapter 1 through chapter 7 in the Bibles of men, but it's going to be Job chapter 1 through chapter 5 in the sword of the Spirit. The second coming of the ways of the Lord are back because now we have the sword of the Spirit. That is the Bible in part from God. Now, how did we get the Bible in part back? Well, Christ, through 2,000-year-old prophecy in Revelation chapter 5, verses 1 and following, he broke the seven seals, the lies, the wiles of Satan. And you take the lies of Satan out of the Bible, and you have the Bible from God. But now we just have the Bible in part. So we just have enough of the Bible to have the sword of the Spirit, where Christianity is back and where we can fight the good fight of faith by removing all of the lies of Satan out of the Bible. So those of you with ears to hear and eyes to see at this point can get a copy of the sword of the Spirit, and you can start marking up the Bible, the sword of the Spirit, getting all the ways of men out of it in the next 43 years so that the kingdom of heaven will return. The Bible from God is the Bible of the kingdom and the Bible of Christianity, which we have in part now. So we have enough of the Bible to be in the second age of one faith from God, Christianity, and we can fight the good fight of faith. So we're going to be working on our Bible. We're going to be like trees planted by the water, and we're going to study the Bible 52 weeks a year, and we're going to get all the lies out of it. And then when that's done, then Christ will resume his reign of the kingdom of heaven. Now we have the sword of the Spirit back, and that's what we've been looking at in Job chapter 1. Last time we looked at Job chapter 1, and we found two lies of Satan that are there that are quite critical. The one is Satan, of course, pretending to be God, and that's how, and he told us that the ways of men were just as good as the ways of God. That's a lie, of course. That's a big lie. But then Satan's lie, he lied that he was not a man. And that's important as well, because spiritual warfare is between God and man, the ways of men and the ways of God. So you see, once you understand that, the ways of men are done. Nobody's going to argue successfully that the ways of men are just as good as the ways of God. So we know now why we are in the last days of the ways of men, the last days of the kingdoms of men, the last days of men trying to rule over this world, because Satan told us that we could. Spiritual warfare is between the ways of men and the ways of God. The subjective truth, pseudo-science, kingdoms, preachers, leaders, Bibles, religions, and the love of men can't compete against God and the ways of God. Or in the second coming of the ways of God. The ways of God are back. That means kingdoms of men can't survive with the ways of God. They can for 43 years before the Bible is restored. But once the Bible is restored, that's done. The ways of men are done forever. It's over with for the last 720 years of Christianity in the kingdom of heaven. So by pretending to be God and lying to us, Satan has stolen our peace and our sanity. James 5, 7 through 11, Revelation 6, verse 4. While under Satan's rule, we can't save ourselves from ourselves. Jeremiah 10, 23. Much less can we bring salvation down from heaven and peace on earth. The Lord God Almighty will keep his promises in approximately 43 years. These are the last 43 years, the last days, the end times of the ways of men, the preaching of men, the Bibles of men, the kingdoms of men, the rule of men, because the King of Kings and Lord of Lords is going to rule over this earth as he does in heaven for 720 years. That's going to be in 43 years from now. Daniel chapter 2, 44, the kingdom of heaven is going to break up and consume the kingdoms of men. It's a done deal. Men can't fight against God. Why did we have the ways of men? Why did God allow Satan to rule? Because we needed to learn. We needed free moral agency to learn that the ways of men don't work. And we needed to understand that only God can save us from ourselves. The school of hard knocks. We've gone through that. Human suffering. And so that's what the book of Job is about. how that men have had to suffer under the rule of Satan. And Satan, in the book of Job, we found it in the first chapter that he was ruling over the kingdoms of men as a man. The first chapter of the God-breathed Bible from God. So we're in the last 43 years, the last days, the end times of the kingdoms of men, as the second age of the kingdom of heaven will break up and consume all the kingdoms of men. And we can go on and on. All through Scripture talks about the last days. There's two ages of the kingdom. The last days are the end times of the ways of men. That's what the Bible is about. 6,000 years, Satan is going to rule over the kingdoms of men. And for 1,000 years, Christ is going to rule over the kingdoms of heaven. But that 1,000 years is divided into two ages. The great and notable day of the Lord is divided into two ages by the kingdom of Satan that we've been in for the last 1,680 years. So the times of ignorance the Lord overlooked. We didn't have a choice but to be under Satan's rule. And of course, we couldn't know about it. We had to be in ignorance for there to be free moral agency. But the times of ignorance the Lord overlooked. In other words, where there's no law, there's no sin. Romans 5, verse 13. When there's no royal law of agape love, we're not held accountable for not loving each other with agape love. Acts 17:30, the times of ignorance the Lord overlooked, but now he commands all men everywhere to repent. You know, we look at all these passages. Consider Exodus 10, verses 1 through 3, Nadab and Abihu, offering to God a strange fire. Well, that's what the religions of men have been doing. Satan told us it was okay. We've been doing that for 6,000 years of humanity, or it will be 6,000 years when it's all said and done. But for 1,000 years now, the Lord's going to be sanctified. He's going to be glorified. Leviticus 10, 1 through 3. Habakkuk 2:20, let every knee will bow before the Lord. All the earth will be silent before him in his kingdom. The ways of God work, the ways of men no. And so what ways of men don't work? Well, none. The only way the USA has continued for as long as it has is because we had the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, which included in portion the wisdom from above, that all men are created equal. So we had checks and balances. That's because God intervened is the only way that the ways of men work as well as they have. And you know, the Lord had to intervene in many times in many ways because men would have destroyed ourselves before now. But now, Obama can't save us. Clinton couldn't save us. Biden can't save us. Trump can't save us. The ways of men just don't work. It's subjective truth. We need to be saved from men. Mike Gill can't save us. Now, you might want to look at his work on YouTube under the state of corruption. He lists what's going on in this world, and really, he doesn't say it this way, but he shows how that Satan is in control of every branch of our government. Everything. Google or look up Pandora's box, and you're going to find out that Satan is in control of all the kingdoms of men, and there's no hope under the kingdoms of men. Now, how do I know that it's time for the second age of the kingdom? Because Satan, the man of sin, has been identified. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 3. Now, the ways of men won't work, and they can't work. Even men with good hearts that are trying to stop this. Mike Gill believes that he can help save us, but can't. The ways of men don't work. The ways of God do. In the book of Job, Job chapter 2, we read about how that the powers that be are ordained of God. And they're Satan. I mean, we read about that in the book of Romans. Well, see, under the kingdoms of men, that Satan's ruling over, God determines that Satan is in control as well as other demons. He allows that to happen. They are ordained of God. Well, we couldn't understand any of that. But all of these demons, of course, are evil. And even men that are counted as righteous by God, they're involved in standing between God and man. We've all been kicking against the pricks, not intentionally. And we're like Saul. How was it that Saul, before his conversion, was kicking against the pricks? because Satan was ruling over him, convincing him that Christ didn't have all authority. That's exactly where we are today. We're kicking against the pricks, and we are going to have a Saul to Paul conversion, and we are going to fight the good fight of faith. We're going to get all of the lies of the devil out of the Bible in the next 43 years. So we're in Job chapter 2, and we start out. And again it came to pass on the day when the powers ordained of God came to present themselves before the Lord. Now notice here, we read about this in Romans chapter 5. Of course, we don't know what's going on in the Bibles of men. We can't know that Satan is ruling over the kingdoms of men, because the kingdoms of men couldn't exist. But the Lord ordains demons and Satan to rule over the kingdoms of men. And now here in this context in the book of Job, it's exactly what we read about in the oldest God-breathed book.
Chapter 2. Again there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, From whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? And still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movedst me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God, and die.
Notice that Job's wife was also under Satan's rule. I mean, she didn't understand what was going on. She didn't know this was a contest between God and man. She also believed that Satan was God, that he had the power of God, that God was doing all these things to Job, and that God was punishing Job. But no, it was Satan pretending to be God. And so that's why she was kicking against the pricks as well.
But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What, shall we receive good at the hand of God? And shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. For they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent every one his mantle, and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great.
Now remember, Satan ruled over the kingdoms of men for 6,000 years total. And these men were all under Satan's rule. And they represented patriarchy. What's wrong with patriarchy? Men. I mean, it was great if you were Job and Christ was giving you instructions. You had a perfect preacher then. But you standing between God and your children, that's a problem. Eliphaz represented patriarchy. And then Bildad, the Shuhite, he represented those under Moses' law during the first fall of man. Again, the first fall of man was from Genesis 3 all the way till the first coming of the Lord, the first coming of the ways of God. And Zophar, the Naamathite, again, he represented denominationalism, all the things that have been going on, the Gnosticism that we've been in the world for the last 1,608 years. We didn't know it because Satan was lying to us. He told us we were Christians. He told us that Christ didn't have all authority and that it was okay for us to preach. We believed him, but we were just Gnostics. Again, there were those of us counted as righteous, just like Saul was counted righteous when he was a Gnostic. But again, what's wrong with denominationalism? What's wrong with the religions of men? They all are contrary to the one true faith. They all steal our peace and salvation brought down from heaven. Because Satan steals it, he convinces us that it's all okay. They lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent every one his robe and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spoke a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. The phileo love of men doesn't work. We need the love of God, agape love. See, these men had great concern for Job. They sat down 7 days and 7 nights. You know, phileo love can't get much better than that, can it? But it wasn't enough. They were in ignorance so that they could stand up against God. And that's what you read in the book of Job. Great ignorance coming out of men's mouths to show us now that the ways of men don't work.
Chapter 3. After this opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. And Job spake and said, Let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, There is a man-child conceived. Let that day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above, neither let the light shine upon it. Let darkness and the shadow of death stain it. Let a cloud dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, let darkness seize upon it. Let it not be joined unto the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Lo, let that night be solitary. Let no joyful voice come therein. Let them curse it that curse the day, who are ready to raise up their mourning. Let the stars of the twilight thereof be dark. Let it look for light, but have none, neither let it see the dawning of the day. Because it shut not up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hid sorrow from mine eyes. Why died I not from the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? Why did the knees prevent me, or why the breasts that I should suck? For now should I have lain still and been quiet. I should have slept. Then had I been at rest with kings and counselors of the earth, which built desolate places for themselves, or with princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or as a hidden, untimely birth I had not been, as infants which never saw light. There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary be at rest. There the prisoners rest together. They hear not the voice of the oppressor. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Wherefore is light given to him that is in misery, and life unto the bitter in soul, which long for death, but it cometh not, and dig for it more than for hid treasures, which rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave. Why is light given to a man whose way is hid, and whom God hath hedged in? For my sighing cometh before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the water.
King Solomon will talk about vanity of vanities. That's right. Life in the kingdoms of men under Satan's rule is vanity. It's meaningless. The only meaning it has is that it shows us the ways of men don't work. Why human suffering? Did God bring human suffering? No. He allowed men to harm themselves to show that we need the Lord God Almighty. We need the perfect King. We need the King of Kings to rule over us with the royal law of agape love.
For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet, yet trouble came.
And so Job is questioning God now. You know, Job is not going to find the answers. The answers aren't in men. It's not in man to guide his own path. He thinks God is rebuking him, punishing him. It's not the Lord at all. It's Satan. And so that's humanity now as a whole. We don't understand why things are happening. We couldn't, because we needed to learn that the ways of men do not work. We bring suffering upon ourselves. We devour ourselves. And so now Job's friends get a chance to address the issue. But you know what? The men are respecter of persons. You know, Satan convinced us we could be like God. So We can be righteous like God. We can have the answers like God. And so men are all respecter of persons. And that's what Job's friends were. And so the preaching of men brought great harm to Job.
Chapter 4. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, If we essay to commune with thee, wilt thou be grieved? But who can withhold himself from speaking? Behold, thou hast instructed many, and thou hast strengthened the weak hands. Thy words have upholden him that was falling, and thou hast strengthened the feeble knees. But now it has come upon thee, and thou faintest. It toucheth thee, and thou art troubled. Is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways? Remember, I pray thee, who ever perished being innocent? Or where were the righteous cut off? Even as I have seen, they that plough iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. The roaring of the lion, and the voice of the fierce lion, and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The old lion perisheth for lack of prey, and the stout lion's whelps are scattered abroad. Now a thing was secretly brought to me, and mine ear received a little thereof. In thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falleth on men, fear came upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. Then a spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. An image was before mine eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice saying, Shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his Maker? Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. How much less in them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, which are crushed before the moth? They are destroyed from morning to evening. They perish forever without any regarding it. Doth not their excellency which is in them go away? They die even without wisdom. Chapter 5. Call now, if there be any that will answer thee. And to which of the saints wilt thou turn? For wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. I have seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his habitation. His children are far from safety, and they are crushed in the gate, neither is there any to deliver them. Whose harvest the hungry eateth up, and taketh it even out of the thorns, and the robber swalloweth up their substance. Although affliction cometh not forth of the dust, neither doth trouble spring out of the ground, yet man is born unto trouble, as the sparks fly upward. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause, which doeth great things, and unsearchable, marvelous things, without number, who giveth rain upon the earth, and sendeth waters upon the fields, to set up on high those that be low, that those which mourn may be exalted to safety. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in the night. But he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor hath hope, and iniquity stoppeth her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore despise not thou the chastening of the Almighty. For he maketh sore, and bindeth up. He woundeth, and his hands make whole. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth, for thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation, and shalt not sin. Thou shalt know also that thy seed shall be great, and thine offspring as the grass of the earth. Thou shalt come to thy grave in a full age, like as a shock of corn cometh in his season. Lo this, we have searched it, so it is. Hear it, and know thou it for thy good. Chapter 6. But Job answered and said,
Now there's going to be 3 cycles of speech: Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, and each of them is going to address Job 3 times, except for Zophar, and the last time he doesn't speak. But so these cycles of speech, which is really nonsense. It's like a modern day debate. Nobody wins religious debates in the world today. The ways of men don't. Subjective truth and pseudo-science of men does not work. So of course none of these men could help Job, and it's a bunch of garbage. Subjective truth. Do they say anything correctly? No, because when you deal with people God's way, you deal out of agape love. So when you talk to people about doing the right thing, you must do the right thing for the right reasons.
Oh, that my grief were truly weighed, and my calamity laid in the balances together. For now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words are swallowed up. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me, the poison whereof drinketh up my spirit. The terrors of God do set themselves in array against me. Doth the wild ass bray when he hath grass, or loweth the ox over his fodder? Can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt, or is there any taste in the white of an egg? The things that my soul refused to touch are as my sorrowful meat. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant me the thing that I long for, even that it would please God to destroy me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Then should I yet have comfort, yea, I would harden myself in sorrow. Let him not spare, for I have not concealed the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should hope? And what is mine end that I should prolong my life? Is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh of brass? Is not my help in me, and his wisdom driven quite from me? To him that is afflicted, pity should be showed from his friend, but he forsaketh the fear of the Almighty. My brethren have dealt deceitfully as a brook, and as the stream of brooks they pass away, which are blackish by reason of the ice, and wherein the snow is hid. What time they wax warm they vanish, when it is hot they are consumed out of their place. The paths of their way are turned aside, they go to nothing and perish. The troops of Tema looked, the companies of Sheba waited for them. They were confounded because they had hoped. They came thither and were ashamed. For now ye are nothing. Ye see my casting down, and are afraid. Did I say, bring unto me? Or give a reward for me of your substance? Or deliver me from the enemy's hand? Or redeem me from the hand of the mighty? Teach me, and I will hold my tongue, and cause me to understand wherein I have erred. How forcible are right words! But what doth your arguing reprove? Do ye imagine to reprove words, and the speeches of one that is desperate, which are as wind? Yea, ye overwhelm the fatherless, and ye dig a pit for your friend. Now therefore be content, look upon me, for it is evident unto you if I lie. Return, I pray you, let it not be iniquity. Yea, return again, my righteousness is in it. Is there iniquity in my tongue? Cannot my taste discern perverse things? Chapter 7. Is there not an appointed time to man upon earth? Are not his days also like the days of an hireling? As a servant earnestly desireth the shadow, and as an hireling looketh for the reward of his work, so am I made to possess months of vanity, and wearisome nights are appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise, and the night be gone? I am full of tossings to and fro unto the dawning of the day. My flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin is broken and become loathsome. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is wind. Mine eye shall no more see good. The eye of him that hath seen me shall see me no more. Thine eyes are upon me, and I am not. As the cloud is consumed and vanisheth away, so he that goeth down to the grave shall come up no more. He shall return no more to his house, neither shall his place know him any more. Therefore I will not refrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a whale that thou settest a watch over me? When I say my bed shall comfort me, my couch shall ease my complaint, then thou scarest me with dreams and terrifiest me through visions, so that my soul chooseth strangling. and death rather than my life. I loathe it. I would not live alway. Let me alone, for my days are vanity. What is man, that thou shouldest magnify him, and that thou shouldest set thine heart upon him, and that thou shouldest visit him every morning, and try him every moment? How long wilt thou not depart from me, nor let me alone, till I swallow down my spittle? I have sinned. What shall I do unto thee, O thou preserver of men? Why hast thou set me as a mark against thee, so that I am a burden to myself? And why dost thou not pardon my transgression, and take away mine iniquity? For now shall I sleep in the dust, and thou shalt seek me in the morning, but I shall not be.